Misogyny is always brought up. What's the female word for misogyny?
Misandry.
What?
Wait, there's a word?
How come we never talk about that? You know why we never use it? Because in our culture today, men are not allowed to have opinions about anything. It's misogyny, but women can say whatever they want about anything. If you look at history in the last couple of decades, women have had the most to say about things. And then women are also getting mad at other women for having things. That's how pick-me culture became a thing. You don't hear them call men pick-me's, it's women pick-me's. So anytime a woman has an opinion that differs from the popular culture of most women, what do they call her? A pick-me. Anytime a man has an opposing opinion to what the popular culture of women think, what do they call him? Misogynistic. How come there is nothing like that for women? That's my biggest problem.
Well, apparently there is a word, but we just never hear it.
But you see what I'm saying?
Misandry.
People don't even know what it is.
Don't
The
be the
same
word
way
of
you
the
have
day.
toxic masculinity. So there's nothing toxic about women. There's no such word as toxic femininity. You want to know why? Because toxic masculinity was created by women.
Today, we're talking about a subject that doesn't get nearly enough honest attention. Masculinity and manhood, and how our culture has been systematically attacking it. I want to be clear. This isn't about shaming anyone or trying to start a fight. This is about truth, about reality, and about what it takes to raise strong families and communities in today's world. So the question you've got to ask yourself is, when did it become unacceptable to be a strong man of faith? Somewhere along the way, society started pushing this idea that traditional masculinity is toxic, that men shouldn't be leaders, providers, or protectors. But let's step back for a second. These aren't bad traits. These are qualities God designed in men for the good of their families, their churches, their communities. I see it everywhere. Boys growing up without guidance, young men being told that their identity is a problem, men being labeled as oppressive simply for standing firm in their faith or providing for their families. And it's not just talk. This messaging seeps into schools, social media, entertainment, and even the workplace. It shapes minds from a young age, and it's leaving an entire generation of men without direction. I want to break all of this down today. We'll talk about the deliberate cultural assault on masculinity, why fatherlessness is a crisis that impacts children and society at large, how the media and education systems have actively worked to feminize and weaken men, and what needs to change. But I don't want this to feel hopeless. We'll also highlight the men who are standing strong, leading with courage and integrity, and leaving a legacy that aligns with both faith and common sense. This episode is about reality. It's about recognizing what's happening to men in our culture, understanding why it matters, and taking steps to ensure that boys grow up seeing strong, faithful men as role models. This is about protecting families, faith, and future generations. And if you're a father, an uncle, a mentor, or just someone who wants to see strong men rise again, this episode is for you. Let's get into it.
Courage, compassion, faith, freedom, truth. Welcome to Courage in the Darkness with your host, Philip Roberts. It's time to awaken America.
What's your opinion on toxic masculinity?
You mean that toxic masculinity that stormed Normandy Beach and won World War II? Or the toxic masculinity that founded the country, or primarily men that go and fight our wars, fight our battles? I mean, it's a preposterous statement. Instead, we need to lift up men, no longer say that they need to be boys, but they need to turn into dangerous gentlemen, and understand what exactly that means, which is to protect the innocent, know your power, use it prudently, and go on an adventure, and stop being a boy in your parents' home.
Let's start by calling this what it is. There's a coordinated, intentional attack on masculinity in our culture. This isn't accidental. This isn't just cultural evolution or progress. This is a deliberate effort to weaken men, confuse boys, and destabilize families. Think about the way boys are raised today. From a young age, they're told to suppress traits like confidence, assertiveness, and protectiveness, because those qualities are labeled as toxic. Teachers, counselors, even popular media push the idea that men shouldn't be leaders or shouldn't stand up for themselves. Boys are told that expressing dominance, ambition, or authority is automatically bad. But these aren't evil traits. They're God given qualities meant to guide, protect, and provide. I've heard stories from parents whose sons were literally punished in school for playing too rough at recess or pretending to be soldiers or superheroes, for competing too aggressively in gym class. Boys are being medicated at alarming rates for simply acting like boys. They're told to sit still, be quiet, suppress their energy, and act more like girls. And if they don't comply, they're diagnosed with ADHD and pumped full of drugs. This is social engineering. It's psychological warfare against the male identity. We've also seen the rise of the toxic masculinity narrative. And let's be honest, every generation has had men who misuse their power or act selfishly. But painting all men with that brush erases the countless fathers, uncles, pastors, mentors, and community leaders who do exactly what God intended. They lead with courage, integrity, and sacrifice. Demonizing masculinity itself doesn't solve anything. It just sows confusion and resentment. And here's what really gets to me. The same people pushing this narrative benefit from male strength when it suits them. They want men to be soldiers when there's a war to fight. They want men to be firefighters when buildings are burning. They want men to be police officers when there's danger. They want men to do the dangerous, difficult, dirty jobs that keep society functioning. But when those same men try to lead their families, discipline their children, or stand firm in their faith, suddenly they're toxic. Suddenly they're oppressors. You can't have it both ways. Either masculinity is valuable or it isn't. Either male strength matters or it doesn't. Another myth that is that masculinity has to be aggressive or domineering to matter. Real strength isn't about intimidation. It's about responsibility, courage, and protecting those who can't protect themselves. A man's power is measured by how he serves his family, his faith, and his community, not by how loud he is on social media or how he measures up to someone else's idea of dominance. The economic and social pressures compound this. Boys grow up watching men struggle to find purpose when the workplace or schools don't value traditional male roles. Manufacturing jobs, the kind of work that built the middle class and gave men purpose, have been shipped overseas. Blue collar work is looked down on. Young men are told that they need to go to college and get office jobs, but many of them aren't wired for that. They're wired to work with their hands, to build things, to do physical labor. And when those opportunities disappear, so does their sense of purpose. Many young men feel trapped, told that they're obsolete or irrelevant. That's not just frustrating, it's dangerous. When boys and young men lose direction, it has consequences for mental health, for family stability, and for society as a whole. We're seeing it in the suicide rates. We're seeing it in the addiction rates. We're seeing it in young men dropping out of the workforce entirely, playing video games in their parents' basements, completely disengaged from life. The media contributes too. Movies, TVs, and advertisements like constantly push a version of manhood that's either hypersexualized, weak, or emasculated. Strong fathers are rare on screens. When they do appear, they're often portrayed as flawed, selfish, or foolish. The bumbling dad who can't figure out how to work the washing machine, the husband who needs the wife to solve all his problems, the father who's basically another child his wife has to manage. Meanwhile, men who do embody integrity and courage are ridiculed or written out of the narrative entirely. Culture is sending a clear message: being a faithful, strong man is out of style, it's backwards, it's oppressive. But here's the truth: God designed men with purpose. Masculinity isn't flawed, it's a calling. Courage, responsibility, discipline, and leadership aren't toxic, they're essential. Men are supposed to be strong. They're supposed to lead, they're supposed to protect. That's not cultural conditioning, that's biological reality combined with divine design. So, why does society push these myths? Because a society without strong men is easier to control. Families break down, fathers disappear, and boys grow up without guidance. Communities weaken, and faith erodes. Weak men create weak societies, and weak societies can be manipulated, controlled, and reshaped by those in power. Strong men are a threat to certain ideologies and political movements. Strong men protect their families from harmful influences. Strong men teach their children traditional values. Strong men build communities that don't depend on government intervention. Strong men resist cultural pressure to conform. That's why they have to be broken first. Understanding this isn't about victimhood or complaining. It's about seeing reality clearly so we can fight back effectively. Boys need role models, not critics. Men need encouragement, not shame. And communities need leaders who are both strong and faithful, who can guide the next generation with integrity and courage. Now let's talk about one of the most devastating consequences of this attack on masculinity: fatherlessness. This is a crisis that affects every aspect of society, and it's getting worse. The statistics are staggering. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, roughly 18 million children, that's about 1 in 4, live without a biological step or adoptive father in the home. In some communities, particularly in urban areas, that number is closer to 70 or 80%. Think about that. Entire generations of boys growing up without fathers, and the consequences are catastrophic. Children from fatherless homes are more likely to live in poverty. They're more likely to drop out of school, more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, commit suicide, commit crimes, end up in prison. They're more likely to experience emotional and behavioral problems. Girls from fatherless homes are more likely to become pregnant as teenagers and more likely to enter abusive relationships. Boys without fathers are 4 times more likely to live in poverty, 3 times more likely to end up in jail, and significantly more likely to struggle with substance abuse. They're also more prone to violence, both as victims and perpetrators. But beyond the statistics, there's something even more fundamental at stake: identity. Boys learn how to be men by watching men. They need to see what masculinity looks like in practice, how a man treats his wife, how he handles stress, how he provides for his family, how he exercises authority with kindness. how he stands firm in his convictions. Without that model, boys are left to figure it all out on their own. And in today's culture, when they look for guidance, what do they find? Social media influencers pushing toxic behaviors, rap music glorifying violence and misogyny, video games offering escapism instead of purpose, pornography warping their understanding of sexuality and relationships. They're getting their idea of manhood from the worst possible sources. And the girls suffer too. When girls grow up without fathers, they don't learn what healthy masculinity looks like. They don't learn what to expect from men, what standards to hold them to, what red flags to watch for. So they often end up in relationships with men who mistreat them because they literally don't know any better. They've never had a father to show them what love and protection should look like. The breakdown of the family, particularly in the absence of fathers, is the single most destructive force in modern society. It drives poverty, crime, addiction, mental illness, and generational dysfunction. And yet our culture continues to push policies and attitudes that make fatherlessness worse. We celebrate single mothers while rarely asking where the fathers are. We make divorce easy and trivialize marriage. We structure welfare systems that financially penalize intact families and reward single parenthood. We promote casual sex without consequence and then act surprised when children grow up without fathers. The government has essentially replaced fathers in many households. Women receive benefits for having children out of wedlock, but those benefits often decrease or disappear if a father is present and contributing. We've created a system that incentivizes family breakdown. And culturally, we mock and dismiss the importance of fathers. How many times have you heard, "Who needs a man? I can do it all myself." How many times have you seen fathers portrayed as unnecessary or optional? The message to boys is clear. You're not needed. Your presence doesn't matter. Anyone can do what you do. But that's a lie. Fathers matter immensely. Study after study shows that children with involved fathers do better in virtually every measurable way. They're healthier, happier, more successful, more stable. Fathers aren't optional, they're essential. The absence of fathers creates a void that boys try to fill in destructive ways. They join gangs looking for brotherhood and male leadership. They embrace hypermasculine, violent behaviors, trying to prove they're men without having any healthy model to follow. They become angry, resentful, and lost. And society offers them nothing. No rites of passage, no mentorship programs, no community elders teaching them what it means to be a man. Just criticism, confusion, and contempt. This fatherlessness crisis didn't happen by accident. It's the result of decades of cultural messaging that fathers are unnecessary, that masculinity is toxic, that traditional families are oppressive. It's the result of economic policies that destroyed working class jobs men depended on. It's the result of welfare systems designed to subsidize single parenthood. It's the result of no-fault divorce laws that made breaking up families easy. And it's destroying us. If we're serious about fixing our society, reducing crime, poverty, addiction, mental illness, we have to start by restoring fatherhood. We have to make marriage attractive and stable again. We have to create economic opportunities for working class men. We have to stop celebrating family breakdown and start celebrating intact families. We have to teach boys that being a father is one of the most important roles they'll ever have.
The U.S. has the highest rate of children living in single-parent households of any nation in the world. About 80% of single-parent homes are led by single mothers, at a rate of 23% of children living with one parent and no other adults. The United States stands over 3 times the world's average of 7% of children raised by one parent. For reference, that number stands at 3% for China and 4% for India. I don't know about you, but that ain't a statistic that I want to be part of personally. We got to get fathers back in the home, and people need to learn to communicate and stay together.
Let's talk about the institutions deliberately undermining masculinity, media, and education. These aren't neutral forces, they're actively shaping how boys see themselves and how society views men. Start with the education system. Our schools have become feminized environments that are hostile to how boys naturally learn and behave. Boys are kinetic learners. They need to move, to compete, to test boundaries. But modern classrooms demand that they sit still for hours, listen passively, avoid competition, and suppress their natural energy. When boys struggle in this environment, which many do, they're labeled as problems. They're diagnosed with behavioral disorders and they're medicated. We're literally drugging boys into compliance because the education system refuses to accommodate how they're wired. Meanwhile, the curriculum itself often pushes anti-male messaging. History classes emphasize oppression, narratives that paint men, particularly white men, as villains. Literature courses select books that portray fathers as absent or abusive and celebrate female empowerment over male leadership. Health classes teach that masculinity is a social construct that needs to be deconstructed. Boys are taught to be ashamed of being boys. And here's the kicker. Schools are overwhelmingly staffed by women, especially at the elementary level. There's nothing wrong with female teachers. Many are excellent, but boys need male role models. They need to see men teaching, leading, and demonstrating that education and masculinity aren't incompatible. Instead, boys see a world where all the authority figures are women, where male behaviors are punished, and where their natural strengths, physical courage, competitiveness, risk taking, are treated as problems to be corrected rather than virtues to be channeled. The media is even worse. Turn on any sitcom and watch how fathers are portrayed. Bumbling idiots who can't change a diaper, make dinner, or have a serious conversation without their wives rolling their eyes. The message is clear. Men are incompetent, childish, and unnecessary, except as comic relief. Action movies have shifted too, like the strong, independent male hero has been replaced or sidelined. Now we get male characters who are either hyper masculine to the point of parody, morally compromised and weak, or completely overshadowed by a female character who's smarter, stronger, and more capable. I'm not saying women shouldn't be heroes in movies, but the shift isn't about adding strong female characters. It's about diminishing male characters. It's about sending the message that men are the problem, that traditional masculinity needs to be replaced. Advertising is relentless in its mockery of men. Watch any commercial. The dad is confused by laundry detergent, the husband burns dinner, the boyfriend can't remember an anniversary. Meanwhile, the woman in the commercial is composed, competent, and exasperated by the man child she has to manage. This message is everywhere, and it's constant, and boys absorb it. They internalize the idea that being male means being inferior, that their natural instincts are wrong, that they need to become more like women to be acceptable. Social media amplifies all of this. Boys spend hours scrolling through content that tells them masculinity is toxic, that being a provider is sexist, that wanting to lead is oppressive. They see men being mocked, canceled, and destroyed for saying things that were considered normal common sense 10 years ago. And the algorithms reward this content. The more divisive and anti male the message, the more engagement it gets, the more it spreads. Boys are drowning in messages telling them that they're the problem. The entertainment industry deserves special attention. Hollywood spent decades undermining fatherhood and traditional masculinity. Where are the movies celebrating strong fathers who sacrifice for their families? Where are the stories about men overcoming obstacles through courage and integrity? They exist, but they're rare and often mocked as outdated. Instead, we get endless content about dysfunctional families, absent fathers, and male characters whose arcs involve rejecting traditional masculinity and embracing more enlightened ways of being. Even children's programming pushes this. Disney movies increasingly portray fathers as either dead, absent, incompetent, or villains. The heroes are independent girls who don't need men. And when men do appear, they're either comedic sidekicks or obstacles to overcome. This isn't accidental. There's an ideological agenda behind it. The cultural elites who control media and education want to reshape society according to their vision. And that vision doesn't include strong traditional men leading families and communities. They want men dependent, confused, and weak. They want boys growing up without models of healthy masculinity. They want families broken down so the state can step in as the provider and authority. But here's what they don't understand. You can't have a functioning civilization without strong men. You can undermine them, mock them, and attack them. But eventually, society collapses without them. Strong men built everything: the roads, the buildings, the infrastructure, the systems that keep the lights on and water running. Weak men can't maintain that, let alone create it. We've already seen, we're seeing right now the consequences. Young men are checking out. They're not getting married, not having children, not pursuing careers with ambition. Why would they? They've been told their entire lives that they're not needed, not wanted, and inherently flawed. The solution isn't to complain about media and schools, though we should call out the lies when we see them. The solution is to build alternatives. Homeschool if you can. Monitor what your kids watch. Provide male mentors. Teach your sons the truth. They matter. Their strength matters. And the world needs strong men now more than ever. So, what does real masculinity actually look like? Let me paint you a picture because I'm tired of the distorted versions pushed by culture. Real masculinity is is the father who gets up every morning, goes to a job he might not love, and works hard to provide for his family. Not because he has to, but because he takes responsibility seriously. He doesn't complain. He doesn't resent his wife or kids. He understands that his strength is meant to serve them. Real masculinity is the man who disciplines his children, not with anger or abuse, but with firm love. He sets boundaries. He enforces consequences. He teaches his sons and daughters that actions have results, that character matters, and that they're capable of more than they think they are. Real masculinity is the husband who leads his family spiritually. He doesn't delegate church attendance to his wife. He doesn't make faith something that happens if it's convenient. He prays with his family. He reads scripture. He models what it means to live under God's authority. Real masculinity is the coach who pushes boys to be better than they thought they could be, who teaches them that losing with dignity is better than winning without character, who shows them that teamwork, sacrifice, and persistence matter more than individual glory. Real masculinity is the mentor who sees potential in a young man and invests time in him, who teaches him to change a tire, fix a leaky faucet, manage money, treat women with respect, and stand up for what's right even when it's hard. Real masculinity is the protector, the man who steps between danger and his family, who doesn't look for fights but doesn't back down from them when they're necessary, who understands that strength is meant to shield the vulnerable, not dominate the weak. Real masculinity is the provider, not just financially, though that matters, but providing leadership, stability, wisdom, and strength. Being someone his family can depend on when things fall apart. Real masculinity is quiet confidence. It doesn't need to brag or posture. It doesn't need constant validation or praise. It simply does what needs to be done day after day without complaint. Real masculinity is accountability. It's the man who admits when he's wrong, who asks forgiveness, who works to be better, who doesn't make excuses or blame others, but owns his failures and learns from them. Real masculinity is humility, understanding that strength comes from God, that leadership is service, and that being a man means putting others before yourself. Real masculinity is courage, not the absence of fear, but acting despite fear, standing firm in your convictions, even when culture, media, and even other men tell you that you're wrong. Protecting your family's values, refusing to compromise on what matters. These men exist. They're not on magazine covers or social media. They're not famous, but they're in every community, coaching Little League, teaching Sunday school, working construction, running small businesses, raising families. They're the backbone of civilization, and they get almost no recognition for it. And here's what needs to happen. We need to celebrate these men. We need to honor them. We need to tell boys, this is what you should aspire to be. This is what manhood looks like. Not the celebrities, not the athletes making millions, not the influencers with perfect abs or exotic lifestyles, the ordinary men doing extraordinary work through consistency, sacrifice, and faith. Boys need to see masculinity modeled in front of them. They need fathers who are present. They need coaches who push them. They need pastors to challenge them. They need employers who mentor them. They need communities that value them. And men need to step up. If you're a father, be present and engaged. If you're not a father, mentor someone else's son. Volunteer. Coach. Teach Sunday school. Get involved in Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Find ways to invest in the next generation of men. This isn't optional. This is the calling. This is what it means to be a man in this generation, to stand firm when everything in culture is trying to tear you down, and to raise up strong men behind you.
Someone I look up to is my dad because he's successful and works hard.
Nice. Your dad, that's beautiful. What's he successful at?
He owns like a business. He's like a construction worker.
It's a good field. My dad used to work in construction too, and I'm real happy that you have your dad to look up to. Not everybody has a father figure or a positive male role model to look up to. It's really good. Real happy for you.
The person I look up to is Bart Simpson.
That's cool. Why?
He's funny.
You like being funny? Nice.
I look up to my dad because he's hardworking.
He's hardworking. What's he do?
He's a good dad.
That's cool, man. What makes him a good dad?
He doesn't hit me or yell at me.
Sounds like he's a supportive father. It's good to have.
And the man I look up to is also my dad, because he motivates me and buys me clothes, but he also motivates me to buy my own stuff too.
That's a good skill to have. Like, he wants you to be able to do that for yourself one day. What does he tell you to do?
He offers me to do little wash the dishes for money, and then he gives me the money so I can buy my stuff. He wants me to be independent.
That's good. That's what we're striving for. Independence, being able to take care of our own things, and to learn how to provide for ourselves. That's a great mentor to have.
So, what do we do? How do we fight back against decades of cultural assault on masculinity? First, we tell the truth. We stop apologizing for being men. We stop accepting the toxic masculinity narrative. We push back, respectfully but firmly when we hear it. We teach our sons that being male is not a flaw or a defect to be corrected. It's a gift from God with purpose and responsibility. Second, we build strong families. Marriage matters. Fatherhood matters. Prioritize your wife and kids over your career, your hobbies, your comfort. Be present. Turn off the phone during dinner. Show up to your kids' games and performances. Invest time in your marriage. Strong families are the foundation of strong societies, and they require strong men leading them. Third, we engage in faith seriously. Go to church, not just on Christmas and Easter, every week. Get involved. Join a men's group, lead a Bible study, serve in your church community. Model for your sons what it means to be a man under God's authority. Show them that faith isn't weak or feminine. It's the source of true strength. Fourth, we create alternative institutions. If public schools are hostile to boys, homeschool or find classical Christian schools that understand male development. If mainstream media mocks masculinity, support content creators who don't, like me. If corporations push anti-male messaging, take your business elsewhere. Vote with your dollars and your attention. Fifth, we mentor intentionally. Every man should be pouring into at least one younger man, teaching him skills, wisdom, values, showing him what manhood looks like in practice. This doesn't require perfection. It requires presence and intentionality. Sixth, we pursue excellence in our work. Whatever you do, do it with integrity and excellence. Be the best employee, the most reliable contractor, the most honest businessman. Show the world that masculine virtues, discipline, perseverance, responsibility produce results. Seventh, we reject passivity. Weak men allow evil to flourish because they won't stand against it. Strong men speak up even when it's uncomfortable. They confront lies, they protect the vulnerable, they refuse to go along with cultural trends that harm families and children. We need legislative and policy changes too. We need to eliminate welfare policies that penalize intact families. We need to reform divorce laws that make family breakdown easy and profitable. We need to bring back the vocational education that gives young men without college ambitions real career paths. We need to protect boys from being medicated into compliance just for acting like boys. We need to push back against ideologies being forced on our children. Gender ideology, critical race theory, comprehensive sex education, these are all designed to confuse children and separate them from their parents' values. We need school choice. We need parental rights, protections. We need to push back against ideologies being forced on our children. Gender ideology, critical race theory, comprehensive sex education. These are all designed to confuse children and separate them from their parents' values. We need school choice. We need parental rights protections. We need to take back control of what our children are taught. And we need to rebuild male spaces. Men need places where they can be men without apology, whether that's hunting camps, men's groups at church, sports leagues, or workshops, places where masculine energy is welcomed, where competition is healthy, where men can speak freely without walking on eggshells. This isn't about excluding women or diminishing their contributions. It's about recognizing that men need male fellowship and mentorship just like women need female friendships and wisdom. The path forward requires courage. It requires men willing to stand firm when everyone around them is bending. It requires sacrifice. It requires putting family before self, faith before comfort, and truth before popularity. But the alternative is unacceptable. We can't allow another generation of boys to grow up confused, weak, and directionless. We can't allow families to continue breaking down. We can't allow civilization to collapse because we were too afraid to defend masculinity. This is spiritual warfare as much as cultural. The enemy wants to destroy families because families are the foundation of faith, community, and civilization. Strong men protect families, therefore strong men must be destroyed. But we serve a God who made men for a purpose. We serve a God who calls us to courage, to strength, to leadership. We serve a God who doesn't make mistakes. And He made you male for a reason. As we wrap up, I want you to understand something. This isn't just about defending an idea. This is about the future. Every boy growing up without a father, every young man who checks out on society, every family that breaks apart, these are real people with real consequences. And it's happening because we've allowed masculinity to be attacked without pushback. Real men are providers, protectors, and leaders. They're men of faith who understand their strength comes from God and is meant to serve others. They're men who work hard, sacrifice willingly, and lead with integrity. They're men who raise their children, love their wives, and build communities. This is the standard. This is what we're fighting for. I want to leave you with one verse that captures everything we've discussed. 1 Corinthians 16:13 says, "Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong." Be watchful. Pay attention to what's happening in culture, in your family, and in your own heart. Don't be passive. Don't sleepwalk through life. Stand firm in faith. Let God's word be your foundation, not cultural trends or popular opinion. When everything around you shifts, stand on truth. Act like men. Embrace your masculinity without apology. Lead, protect, provide, mentor. Do what God designed you to do. Be strong. Not for your own ego, but to serve others. Use your strength to build up, not tear down. To protect, not dominate. To lead, not control. That's the calling. That's the standard. And it's time for men to rise to it. Start today. Start where you are. Invest in your family. Mentor a young man. Get involved in your church. Stand firm in your convictions. And raise sons who will do the same. If you found this episode helpful, please share it, like it, and subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you found value in what I'm doing or want to support this work, consider becoming a member on Patreon at Courage in the Darkness, where you can find even more content. Thank you for listening. Now go be the man that God called you to be, and God bless.